Oh, oops, can that continue? Um, I've got, this meeting is being recorded is on my screen. Is that what you all see also? Trying to get rid of it.
I think.
There we go. All set. Yeah, great.
Oh, good.
So I've organized my presentation into 4 sections. And as we go through, I will share with you hands-on experiences. My background personally is that I'm an environmental planner. I've been a consultant in Michigan for 40 years. And about 6 years ago, I totally retired from any pay work, but I feel the mission that we all have to connect our gardens with the earth it's a wonderful challenge, and we work on it together. So let's just get underway here. And I understand we'll have a chance for some dialogue and questions at the end. So just a PS, I've updated my slides probably 50% in the last 2 days because of you. Many of you have come to the SOCWA Gardens or have taken the Master Composter class, but here's who we are. We are a program under the umbrella of a 11-member municipal organization, but everything we do is free and open to every citizen in the state of Michigan. Everything I do is guided by the 23 plus volunteers who come and work and share. And it's been a wild 2 years, right? Last year, we just did maintenance, but beginning this spring, we began to do education. And I'm optimistic we'll be back up with more programs even. I've just put down a few of the things we do. I've been doing PowerPoint presentations nonstop since, well, really forever, right? With Zoom. But I really want to invite everybody to the SOCWA Gardens to see what we're doing. And then just PS, those of you that are master composters, beginning this summer, we have begun a recertification program so that we're all sharing the same basic truth about decomposition and the health of our soils. And that will be also open next spring. So any of you interested, just contact me at any time. So my volunteers are incredible. This is Fran Tattarelli and Jade O'Neill. We could go through all of them, but I feel they're looking over my shoulder as I share with you some of our thoughts and findings and questions. My new add-on to my PowerPoint, which always started with water quality and healthy soils, healthy plants, is climate change. So we are talking the secrets of the soil and adding on the reality that soil is the 3rd largest carbon reservoir on Earth. It is incredible. And of course, we see this with regenerative agriculture, but we can see it in our home gardens as well. So my last bulleted point, the best soil for our plants is also the best soil for our planet. It all comes together. And that's going to be what I share with you with some slides as we go through this evening together. Initially, the SOCWA Healthy Lawns and Gardens Project was started. We were funded by the federal government and many state organizations and watershed councils and grants and so forth. But it was this idea that pesticides and quick release fertilizers are overused by gardeners. And that to this day propels us forward. I want to bring to your attention the National Pesticide Information Center, because it has for the past 20 years provided an objective source of data on pesticide impacts. It's wonderful, based out at Oregon. MSU was originally involved in it. And back in the day, 2000, we, SOCWA, produced a series of landscape tip cards, which are on our website, and we hand them out when folks like you come and tour our gardens. But the idea, which came from Greg Patchen, remember Greg, and MSU, and the Michigan Green Industry Association, was that there are options to pesticides, and let's remind ourselves the cultural practices and so forth. But that website is a goldmine because the chemicals have certainly changed. So friends, I want to pose to you a question before I get into my sort of presentation material. We have at the SOCWA Gardens vegetable plots, therefore annuals, vegetables, herbs, flowers, and we plant for diversity and plant in 100% compost. In the last 2 years, and perhaps the last 5 years, if I could remember that far back, we have had no serious pest problems. And when I say no, I mean no. I mean not yellowed leaves in any significant way, no beetles. Yeah, maybe something small, but I just polled our volunteers a couple days ago, and folks are reporting little issues in their home gardens, but nothing here. So this is a big question. Is it the biodiversity, the cultural practices, and the compost? Most likely, yes. Pretty amazing. Each of us has an area to adopt a garden program, very, very small gardens, many of them 3 feet by maybe 6 feet. They're different sizes. Um, and everything under the sun in terms of vegetables and flowers. And we think about companion planting, but come on by and think about that. I mean, we're going to be tracking. We do look, we're looking for the beetles, but they're not there. And this year we've got a lot of cauliflower and kale and kinds of course, tomatoes, beans, lots of things, and then lots of wonderful flowers. So, what is diversity? What is biodiversity? The amazing variety of life on Earth. We visit nature centers. We want to understand the layers of the garden, vertical and horizontal. We want to understand the bloom sequencing, and when possible, select native plants. So to illustrate these points, I'm first going to share just 3 or 4 slides about natural areas close at home. We love to go visit the natural areas, and this particular site, which is at Birmingham Unitarian Church, is the best constructed prairie wet meadow in the Rouge River watershed, right on Woodward at Lone Pine. Very unusual. That's David Mindell, who removes invasives. But more typically, we have our lake plain prairies, our lakes, and of course our woodland. Now, where we are in southeast Oakland County, we were substantially woodland, kind of a coming together of oak hickory forest, beech sugar maple, and swamp. And that guided our construction of the Native Landscape Education site. But this is just like a mile or so away. And wow, right? Spring ephemerals, familiar to all of us. And we learn from nature the natural recycling of the nutrients and organic matter and storage of carbon in nature, in the forest. And we are trying to do the same things in our home gardens through basic practices that give us healthy plants and healthy environments. So biodiversity and climate change are linked together. I've been mentioning all of this. Of course, we're concerned about insects. Global climate change is all around us. Wow, this week, this month, this year, for sure. And what we do in our home landscapes, as Doug Ptolemy certainly advocates, and many, many others, it's all important for supporting biodiversity and reversing climate change. But I'm going to compare our goals with the Native Landscape Education site with restoration, because we are not restoring a natural system. We're rather trying to learn from nature. So this little site, which is at 3910 West Webster, that's between Coolidge and Greenfield and Royal Oak, just south of Beaumont Hospital, it's a 1/4 acre site dedicated to education with 43 species of trees and shrubs. And, I'm guessing about 75 species of wildflowers throughout the year, probably more. And our goal is to inspire home gardeners to learn ourselves, to teach others, and it's all volunteer maintained. So when you come and visit us, we have our map, we have our trees and shrubs marked with little tags. So I want to just give you some examples. It's a very difficult site to photograph unless I were to do a video, and I don't think it warrants that. But for example, our spice bush, which all of this was planted, our major anchoring trees and shrubs were planted in 1995. So the Lindera benzoin, wow, spring flowers, it's the first to bloom, and the host plant for the spice bush swallowtail butterfly. So our volunteers are out and we're looking for those spice bush swallowtails, and we're teaching each other. By the way, the mulch underneath, we're demonstrating pocket gardens, we're demonstrating plants and mulches, and just a few sites here, area of peace for sure. The neighbors come over, walk through, and the site has matured. We planted it on a grass site with compost, with kids coming to help plant the trees, and it's now 25 years old. Here's our lower woodland garden, and this was just yesterday or the day before. I just want to give you some images because you are looking at vertical and horizontal diversity, to say the least. We really have diversity in our gardens. But what we've learned, and I'm sharing as I go through my slides, a few of our lessons learned, just some examples, which is why it pays to volunteer at a natural area and or a garden like ours. Um, so wild strawberry, well, some of the native garden centers, native plant producers recommended that we would like wild strawberry. So we cleared out an area and we planted it. And 2 years later, we blinked and it had taken over almost. We really know which are the aggressive plants. So in this case, what we did this year is we created a trench, it's in the back there, to separate, to isolate the wild strawberry, which is lovely. It's great, a great nectar flower, attracts carpenter bees, mason bees, and many more, but it gets out of control. And that's the issue with so many native plants. So Julie and Matt Fillion is here on the bottom right. We're here, we're pulling out the wild strawberry that escaped and also avens and other things. And we make decisions as we go along. Very much an adaptive management model, which is similar to, I think, the Cornell Botanical Gardens, where you learn as you go. We have evolving plans, we have our inventory list, but a couple more quick examples. Moist soil habitat with pawpaw and buttonbush. Amazing. We're finding these native plants grow in surprising places and we love it. And then we will cut some of them down to get more diversity. The bee balm is wonderful. The prairie plant pocket garden on the left here, just July and early August, we got 8 species of wildflowers, and there's a 9 bark in that particular garden, and then others to come. And we're finding the opportunity to learn by observing the beneficials, the native bees, the wasps, the honeybees. Haven't seen many hummingbirds, however. Anyway, it's a laboratory. And coming in August, our cycle is really in the spring. We're doing our cleanup and our maintenance and a little bit of planting in some open areas and then continued maintenance. And then round about August, we begin to observe more. And we've been doing some insect inventories, which have been wonderful because we learn from each other, as I said. One of our special gardens, pocket gardens, is the Milkweed Garden. And here it is with the common milkweed, Asclepias syrica. And what we'll do this year is cut the stalks in half by 50% or so very soon, because the tender stalks are more choice for the monarchs. We won't cut all of them. It's a monarch way station. We have 3 or 4 species of milkweed. We'd like to expand that. And 2 volunteers this year adopted that area just to keep track of it. We're opening up areas, we're planting, and of course, with the common milkweed, we're pulling it out when it aggressively spreads to other areas. But the scent right now, I mean, like yesterday, it's overwhelming. It's so sweet and lovely. Michelle Nill up in the upper left, she's one of our butterfly gurus, and you can see the butterflies we've identified, which, it's a small site. It's a 1/4 acre. And we know the monarchs, but we're trying to learn the others as well. And of course, the decline of the insects. I'm going to go quickly through here. I suspect the milkweed cycle is well known to all of you. And then one last slide here with the fall diversity, vertical, horizontal, editing all the time for diversity. That's really, and also I would say beauty, because we like things not to be too messy, right? I mean, we're trying to model for home gardens, and so far so good, because we're getting some interest as time goes on. So native plants, our planting plan at the SOCWA Native Landscape Education site is all pure species, straight species. That is, no cultivars at all, 0, 0. So it raises the question, why grow native plants? And of course, we're improving landscape functionality, essential habitat for the native insects and animals, but it's also to appreciate our natural heritage, to cultivate that, and to welcome all of the wildlife that might decide to go here. We love to do Go Decomposer little walkthroughs with kids. It's you turn over the log, and then we with great excitement look at the variety of earthworms, cell bugs, and so forth. So it is Ptolemy's idea, right? That we have homes that are, what is his phrase? A homegrown national park. I love that. I love that. But it isn't a single visual image. It is a goal, and we approach it with natives and non-natives, with all wildlife in mind. I'm going to skip the straight species list here, but we're often asked this question by folks walking through. Number of special sales have already taken place. But you know, how wonderful. You can go to Ray Wiegand's and find some straight species. We got a maidenhair fern there in the spring that was wonderful. And then the native plant producers, they no longer, by the way, have an association here in Michigan, but we know where they are and we can go to them, check them. Bill Schneider with Wild Type Nursery, and Brenda Nolan, who's in closer by in Troy, they've been very, very helpful to us. So MSU did this research a number of years ago, and they may be still going on, of how the native plants attract beneficial insects, this being an important question for agriculture. So I love this list because you can see every month that goes by, you've got a easy, I'm going to say easy grow, beautiful native plant. And so if you go just with these wildflowers, with one exception, Canada anemone, you've got a beautiful, beautiful garden. And that's pretty cool. I say the exception is Canada anemone because it's the worst thug of the, of the team, so to speak. One little piece and it takes over completely. So what about this? This is by my garage 2 days ago. I've got swamp milkweed in the foreground and purple coneflower, a cultivar, a cultivated variety, in the back. So it was amazing. This beautiful monarch was hovering. I mean, like I'm talking 10, 15 minutes, this monarch was out there. So I went out to take the photograph and saw all the bees, various bees buzzing around. They were all on the coneflower and not on the swamp milkweed. Swamp milkweed being choice for the monarch and for other pollinators. So, you know, all I can say is lots of flowers are great for our pollinators species. And cultivars of native plants have lots of benefits. Here's common nine bark we have in our garden. That's the slide on the left. That's a nine bark that was purchased from wild type, pure species, if you will. And then the one on the right is from Ray Wiegand's. We use it as a border plant. It's Amber Jubilee. And so we can observe and compare the two in terms of attractiveness and appeal for pollinators, and they seem to be equal, frankly. And they're both full sun, and that really helps. So my own backyard, I'm fooling around. I just dug out all of those daylilies. I've had enough of daylilies. Got prairie dock in the back there. I mixed my bone set with zinnias because my garden got too shady. You know, these are all typical sort of home garden situations, but I have tried to separate my natives, which are in this photo, in the back from my non-natives in the foreground. So I've got my daisies on the right, and in the back, Culver's root, Joe Pye is coming up. In fact, this particular slide was taken about exactly 1 year ago, because what I wanted to do, well, this is quick. You know, non-natives are fine. I think sometimes we seem to have a guilt trip. I don't know where that comes from. It's unfair. I think Douglas Ptolemy says it right. And that is, you add value and function to your landscape, but you don't have to remove all the non-natives that you have. That doesn't make any sense. We just make judgments about our goals for biodiversity, attractiveness, right plant, right place, of course. So here's just another thought on maintenance. This was in my side yard yesterday, or was it today? You know what? This was today. I've been updating my slides. So I've Culver's root that's just coming into bloom. In the back is tall sunflower, wonderful plants. I've got Joe Pye coming up and several other natives in a fairly small site. But you see that round-leafed milkweed appearing stem. That's common dogbane. So I featured it down in the bottom right. I have tried to get rid of that dogbane for about 10 or 15 years. I pull it up whenever it comes up. It's actually a wonderful pollinator, but it spreads via underground rhizomes. It's just too much. My point is just that we learn what spreads and what we're looking for. So I don't mind having one dog bane, but I'd much rather have the gorgeous display of the Culver's root and the sunflowers, which my neighbors stop and talk, and we've got the kids looking at everything there. And of course, the reminder, this has been mentioned, I'm sure, in many of your previous talks, that we think about our fall and winter maintenance. We're leaving woody debris, we leave the leaves. We are the mulching team at SOCWA, so we're doing a lot of that, and in our home yards as well. Raking out, yes, but more like mid-April when the temperature is higher. I really like it. So just a note, I keep learning and learning from others. And so I began asking myself, well, what is it about these ground covers that, be it wild strawberry sort of brings it up. That's a native. I thought, okay, Japanese Pachysandra. I came across this home in my neighborhood. Solid Pachysandra. Well, it's a nectar source. And so what's the problem? Well, it's a choice. So there's not a big problem, except that I think we're blocking off some diversity. We're not building the soil food web, the soil system, which is very important. However, this plant is capturing carbon. So, I'm thinking, well, if I weigh it all, I'm not going to judge it. I'm just thinking differently about native versus not native, and wanting to cover the ground with diversity, yes, with diversity, but also with clumps, with clusters. That makes some sense. So there's strength in numbers. That's what diversity means, and a garden with diverse plants is more resilient. So this is no new news to any of you, I am sure, but just a reminder. I think we can feel proud of what we're doing with diversity, and then add those natives in whenever we can, and especially the trees and shrubs. So I really wanted to do soil, so it's time we moved on to what I believe is the centerpiece of my presentation this evening, of building and maintaining healthy soil with organic matter. 1 teaspoon of healthy soil has more microbes than there are people in the US. We can't see them, but they're our friends. So we've been at the SOCWA Gardens, that is, with Zoom meetings. We've been doing a soil seminar and reviewing the basics on soils. And I had a picture up initially. There's a wonderful book called Grow Your Soil by Diane Meisler. Pick it up if you can. It's wonderfully fun, with great lines on growing our soil. Well, are we really growing our soil? Well, we're recognizing that the life of the soil leads to the life of the plants and the planet. So the plants are making their own food. Excess food in the form of sugars gets discharged as exudates out through the roots, and then those roots, with extensions with mycorrhizae, will pull in the nutrients and water back up. That flow back and forth. No new news to you, I think, as master gardeners. But what isn't always recognized is how organic matter fits into the picture. So we say 5% organic matter is healthy soil by definition. That organic matter is the living component of the soil. So soil, yeah, it's not that it's all alive. Minerals aren't alive. Air isn't alive, but it is changing all the time because of that organic matter. And that's why we are adding compost and natural mulches like crazy. And that's also why we can say that these basic practices of using compost and natural mulches, we're helping with climate change. The research has been there for over a decade. All you have to do is Google and start reading the articles. And in fact, some of the environmental groups, I'm not thinking Sierra Club, but Green America, and they've seen, soil heroes has been marketed as something we all need to do. And it all boils down to building the carbon in the soil, which fuels so much good stuff. So the process here, the trees store the carbon, and by the way, the soil also directly captures carbon because some bacteria are photosynthesizing. I mean, it's very interesting once you dive in. Interesting, complex, fascinating, and important. But what is happening is that storage of the carbon it just sinks lower and lower. And the cooler underground temperatures slow down the life. We don't get decomposition, but it eventually finds its resting place with humus, then even further down. And of course, it's oil storage and all the carbon underground. So storing carbon is a big topic, to say the least, and we can do it in our own homes very simply, actually. So the soil food web, the bug eat bug. I was thinking of this as the bug eat bug slide, but what it is the individual food chains in the soil woven together in the total ecosystem. They're all interconnected, complex relationships. You think you understand it and then you don't. But diversity of the microorganisms is the key. Diverse species, diverse everything. So we want diverse materials put on top of the garden to create that diversity in the soil to support diverse plants and to control disease and pathogens, which, like my vegetable garden situations, I'm thinking that's what's going on in part. We've got healthy soil under there. Yes, we're putting compost down all the time, and that compost is very diverse and all those microbes. So the soil food web is the source of the nutrition for all plants on the earth. And when we garden in partnership with the food web, we can feel really happy about the sustainability of our gardens. Yes, we've got pollinators, but toxin free for children, good produce, all of these good things. And I love this, which came from Diane Miesler in her book, Grow the Soil. Better sleep for the gardener who's doing the right thing for the planet. These are simple steps, but worth thinking about. So go decomposers. We have microorganisms in the soil and macroorganisms. The decomposer organisms are breaking down the organic materials and converting the forms. Now, if I just want to make a point, you can put um, a green nitrogen-based material into your compost and into your soil, but that doesn't mean that that's a direct source of nitrogen back up to the plant. The transformation of all of the materials that go into the soil before they reach a form that the plants can take them up is very significant. It's very complicated, very complex, but sometimes I think we oversimplify what really is going on in the soil. And then just the reminder that earthworms in natural areas have consumed leaf litter and they can get out of control. You can have an earthworm infestation. In our native garden, we have various earthworms and it's not an infestation. They're doing what we like to see in a garden because we have a garden and not a natural area. So most microbes are beneficial and they're doing all these great things that we want our gardens to do, capturing energy and breaking down residue and on and on and on. And without the microbes, there would be no soil. When we're with the kids, I should have put some slides in of the children which explore the natural area. And of course, it's the visible decomposers that we get excited about, but it's those invisible microbes that are driving the soil food web and making life on Earth possible. Bacteria in the soil, one teaspoon of healthy soil with 1,000,000 to 1,000,000,000 bacteria at the basis of the food web, breaking down some molecules that even fungi cannot do. So how do we build good bacteria? We put in more compost, more natural mulches on top. And of course, fabulous fungi. Oh, wow, some great videos out there to check. Fabulous fungi, to say the least. They are the internet of the underground soil regime. I love that phrase. And they're extending out everywhere, shuttling the nutrients and water underground and helping the roots to grow. We have just begun to explore this topic. Yes, we see mushrooms on top of the soil from time to time. You say, "Oh, I don't want those mushrooms." That's and to me, it's a sign that we have some action, some activity in our soil that's beneficial. And those fungi are so important for water holding capacity, removing toxins, and so forth, all of those disease prevention tips, and our nature's recyclers, the sow bugs and pill bugs. So there we go. Now, okay, fertilize with care, following soil test results. We have just done soil tests for the vegetable garden for one of the plots and for SOCWA compost, and I want to share that with you. But first, let's think about fertilizers and what's going on. These are some basic definitions. We covered this in our master composter classes. I want to get to fertilizer though. What is a fertilizer? Well, it's an organic or inorganic material added to the soil for providing nutrients for plant uptake. So compost is a fertilizer. It can be used as a fertilizer. There are other organic fertilizers too, of course, and then inorganic fertilizers as well. And you don't want to overuse. So why do people fertilize their gardens? I love this because someone tells them to do so. Mostly people don't have a clue about why they fertilize. It's a habit, right? We're all in this boat. We've got something in our garage that was there. Maybe we just got it. Maybe we're just really thinking, oh, I think I need that, whatever it is. The retailers, you walk into every store, it's impossible to turn your back completely. But it's also this, right, the myth that plants need to be fed, that you need fertilizer to feed your plant. No, plants make their own food, thank you. Why should people fertilize? Well, there are some good reasons. If you lack nutrients in the soil, then you need to have the nutrients for the plants. And soil nutrient testing is the only way to really know. We can guess about chlorosis and so forth and so on, but we don't really know unless we test our soil. Now, FYI, you probably know this, but perhaps not, that the MSU soil test does not actually test your soil for nitrogen. Be interested if that's news to any of you. It's a formula. The reason being that nitrogen quickly volatilizes. So it's just an estimate of the nitrogen. But the other factors that are measured, the percent organic matter, the nutrient levels of phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and calcium, those are real tests. So there are definitely some reasons to test soil. We are advocates of this. If a plant isn't growing well, if you have a new garden or intend a major renovation, that's a good idea. Or the third bullet, you simply want to know about your soil and organic matter, just background. So if you've not tested your soil in the last several years, I'd encourage you to do so. And FYI, you can do just organic matter for $5. You take the sample. Sometimes I think we're too casual about our samples for soil testing. You want 10 subsamples mixed together in a clean pail and then into the box and sent off to John Dahl, the soil test lab. But just think of that, $5. All you need to do, take your grab sample, put it in a Ziploc bag, put a little check in there made out to MSU, send it to John Dahl Soil Nutrient Testing Lab, MSU, and you'll get back your percent organic matter. And I cannot emphasize how important that is. You want at least 5% and hopefully more. And the only way to know is to get that test. So we did that. We do it every year, every couple of years anyway. We did a complete nutrient test. So we tested, what I did is I sent in a sample of SOCWA compost and also at the exact same time, a sample of the soil from one of our vegetable plots. And here's what we found. The compost, which is, I think of it as a rich soil. It is a type of soil. It has all the components of soil, but the organic matter in this case for SOCWA compost, 42%. It might be, depending on the particular sample, it might be higher, 50% or so, but it's not 100%. It's not all organic matter. There's minerals, air, and other things in there. High pH, we know highly alkaline. In our vegetable garden, though, this was really good news. We had organic matter of 25%. Well, it'll fluctuate, I'm sure, probably from 20% up. But here again, we're really growing our plants in 100. It's not, we put 100% compost down, it mixes with the soil, but that's a charged up soil. That is a soil food web, right? Very tough because all of that organic matter is the decomposer organisms, the bacteria and the fungi, and they're having a ball and they're snacking and they're eating and they're reproducing and they're creating a wonderful nutrient source, diverse nutrient source for the plants that we're growing. And you do not need additional fertilizer if you have high quantities of organic matter. Now, John Dahl has said that to us at the SOCWA Gardens many times. We've had John in to do presentations for the last decade at least. So I thought, well, here we're in COVID, who knows, I better double check all this. So we had a good telephone interview back in April and he said, absolutely, yes. I was thinking it was a little bit of an aberration, but you can reproduce this 100%. You do not need other fertilizers if you use extensive compost, and there's many other benefits. So this is the SOCWA compost facility, which is in Rochester Hills. And I wanted to give you the information about picking up compost. The hours have changed, but the site is open um, uh, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. There's the address. This is all on the SOCRA website. That's the Southeastern Oakland County Resource Recovery Authority, the sister agency to the Water Authority. Now, if you live in a SOCRA community or Rochester Hills as the host community, you can shovel as much compost as you can put into your car or truck or barrel or whatever pails for free. If you're outside of SOCRA communities, you can buy it at a reasonable cost. You can shovel yourself for $15 per yard. Well, that would be into your truck. I don't know what they do if you just want a couple buckets. Maybe you just piggyback with a friend who lives in a SOCRA community. We are picking up compost and using it in our homes nonstop, and it's really, really a joy. It is tested. There may be a little residue of pesticide in it, but no more, in fact, less than probably in your soil or air just around. Everything is decomposed with the hot composting process. How am I doing? Good. Okay. I wish I could see your faces, but we'll keep moving along. Making and using compost and natural mulches. I was originally invited to present composting, and I sort of declined the invitation with the idea that we do best to learn composting when we're standing around the compost bin and can really do Q&A. I'll never forget the very first compost workshop I attended. Ray Ayer in Ann Arbor took an apple, he cut it in half or 3/4 or something, and he threw it into the compost pile. He said, "This is what we do." Well, he was sort of kidding, but it really is a hands-on project. So I'm going to share a few notes with you, but it's really an invitation for you to contact me, please. And we'll let you know when our next session is. And we like to teach composting to like 1 or 2 people. Don't have to have a whole crowd. We have lots of flyers. We hand them out. So our basic 5 steps, we're selecting a compost bin and the location in our home. We're collecting materials. Our formula is 50% brown, 25% green, and notice 25% soil or compost. That was invented by SOCRA. I mean, when we first started the program, we were the first in Michigan in 1992. I was looking at Toronto materials and Seattle materials, and there was always this question, a handful of soil being thrown into your shredded leaves or whatever. And then I started looking around Southeast Oakland and especially in Huntington Woods, where I happen to live. And there were gardeners that were really piling in the soil. And we realized that for cold composting, it was a really great way to speed up the process, mask any odors or problems that might occur. And we had the compost, why not use it? So we shred our leaves, and green would include the fruits and vegetables and other green clippings, and layer it, add water as we go, making the mixture as wet as a wrung out sponge. Mixing it from time to time, not a big heavy deal when we use easy bins. And within 10 weeks or less, we're harvesting beautiful compost that is lighter in feel, very earth smelling, earth friendly, not smelly, earth friendly, with a fragrant, really, it's a rich earth smell. And then we make it ourselves. And of course, we've got our SOCRA compost as well. So our brown sources, our favorite are the shredded leaves. Oak leaves are fine. Pine needles are fine. Straw without hay is fine. Wood chips are fine, and so on. We've had lots of discussions. Well, what about paper? Let's put paper and newspaper into our compost. Well, friends, we can recycle that. It doesn't add the nutrients that the leaves have. We are recycling nutrients from leaves, not just organic matter. And then green materials, which, by the way, you don't need at all. You can make great compost just with shredded leaves, water, a little bit of soil or compost added in, mix it up. But reducing our food waste is so satisfying. And of course, our coffee grounds, which are nitrogen based. So that's it. It's so simple. But usually our workshops take 45 minutes or so, and the Q&A is always really good to go over. Some bin choices. Basically, your choice is a static holding unit, as shown here. Both of these are holding units. The one on the left is a divides into separate sections. I don't think it's still available unless you get one from someone who has a BioStack, it's called. And then the Earth Machine, that was the kind of bin that was sold for $40 by municipalities, but you can go to Gardener Supply. These days, you don't go to look at a bin, you just look online, Google compost bin, and you'll have many, many choices. We love the ones, though, as shown on the right, where the door, you pull up the trap door and the finished compost drops out. And you mix, just like those girls are doing. You just put your hand in there with a trowel and mix it around. We're not really doing a whole lot of work, and we're getting some beautiful compost, but it's because we're careful about what we put in. No weed seeds, for example. There's many no prohibitions about what to put in. Jennifer Bartleman, who I think is on this call right now, she loves her bin in her backyard. It's a 2-chamber tumbler. And the reason the 2 chambers work is she can add fresh material, fresh green food scraps on the right side, no meat, oil, etc. Right, but fruit and vegetable peelings on the right, and on the left, just keep that so it turns. So she can get a batch out then. That's the problem with the tumbler. We are very concerned about rodent issues and rats. They're all over. Compost is not attracting them, but food sources might. And for that reason, a tumbler above ground is always a little safer from that perspective. But if you're careful and you cut your fruit and vegetable peelings carefully and bury them deep in, you should be able to compost fruit and vegetable peelings without any problem. John Lambert made this compost bin out of a trash can. He just cut the bottom off. We like the flow of the microbes from the soil up and down, and we like to have water drain out the bottom. And by the way, that's the problem, if there is a problem, with the tumblers. Composters love love the bins that they have, and they often have not tried others. And I feel actually you can't go wrong. Just have some container for organizing your material. It's the least important decision. What is important is to water. Add that water in as you're mixing. Sarah is showing in here, you might be, for a bin of this size, it might be 10 minutes for just a third of the leaves, and the leaves shed water. That's the reason. You really want to soak it up. And then once it's damp, the water recirculates through up onto the underside of the top of the bin. And we try to use the bin with our vegetable gardening. We have to make ourselves do it, though, because we have easy, basically yard waste collection and pickup of garden debris. But it's so good to make your own. You know what you have then. These kids know, they're touching the benefits of compost. No new news. We're sandy soils. This is when you use the compost. Wow. Oh, the compost is helping sandy soils have some structure. It's loosening clay soils, releasing nutrients slowly as a slow release fertilizer. It's capturing carbon, reducing soil-borne diseases, degrades pollutants, helps prevent soil erosion, healthy plants. Compost has been used to clean up oil spills, friends. I mean, it is a miracle drug of nature, and it's not a drug. It's a natural product. We just make it through a managed process, and it's nature's recycling. So how do we use compost? Well, we use it everywhere. I feel a little strange even showing these slides because we dump it down. We, the SOCWA master composters, SOCWA gardeners, that you can never have enough. There's no such thing as too much. I think maybe there is in some cases, but I've yet to know of one. So you add it to planting holes. You don't have to amend it in, just put it on top of the soil. If you're planting something, keep it around, dump it in. On the grass, you can rake it in. The more you have, the better. Containers 50-50. It works very well. So, and then finally, my little section is natural mulches. And my definitions, I think were clear enough. A mulch is a material that is put on top of the garden, on top of the soil, to really like a blanket, to reduce the need for watering and weeding and reducing soil compaction. So many benefits, enriching soil, controlling insects and diseases. And of course, we like the natural mulches that decompose and they become compost. So how do you do that? Well, you look at your different mulch materials. It should be thick enough to keep the weeds from growing, obviously, and yet allowing the water and the oxygen to go through. So good mulch is readily available, inexpensive, and easy to apply. Especially in the fall, we like to do special mulch reviews. We have different kinds of mulches we set out at table displays. But this is Jan Bills with two women and a hoe. I love it. She's dumping this mulch down. You, as gardeners, are probably using hardwood mulch extensively in open soil areas. I find it interesting, though, that the public, many of our neighbors, right, you've talked to them, they say, oh no, that costs too much money, or why do I need that? It's extra work. Many of us are spending more money on our mulches than we are on our plants and more time to spread it. Boy, the pine bark is great. Um, Mini bark, so it goes with the mulch. So this is on the side of my home. And with tree mulching, we're very specific. We have great tree mulching and planting information that grew out of our program. So please check our website. But I wanted to share with you just a tip. If you're doing tree planting in a community basis, the parks, our municipal folks do it. You might have an opportunity to make a put compost, a couple of inches of compost around the base of the plant, keeping it away, yes, from the flare. There's details about planting, but I want to, what's shown here is the sequence of compost first, then newspaper, then shredded bark, a hardwood mulch on top, trying to keep the mulch from decomposing quite so quickly. And it does seem to work. It'll extend your mulch by, another 6 months, and it's a costly process. And then the newspaper gradually decomposes, and eventually the mulch does as well. And then you go back to the cycle, but you might not have to mulch again for another year and a half. So the trees tell us to stand tall, to embrace with joy the changing season, reflect the light of our own true nature, and of course, we're connecting with our communities with our earth friendly gardens. In summary, these practices seem so natural to me, but I don't know. For me, it's been a 20, 30 year career here part-time, just that we do these things, and I keep learning. It seems more important now than it was 20 years ago in view of climate change. But simply using compost and natural mulches as much as we can and to plan with diversity really kind of wraps it up. So we do offer tours of the SOCWA gardens. We'd like to tour just a couple people. We've had some garden clubs come with more like 10. Now that we don't have to mask up, it's a lot easier to host larger groups, and we're happy to do so as volunteers. We are 100% volunteers. And the composting may or may not be part of the visit to our gardens. Also, we are an open door program for volunteers. We direct our education efforts to volunteers. I used to do lots of classes for others. That's where I met many of you, living out and about in the county. Um, these days, our education focus is the volunteers themselves. So as a volunteer, you reap the benefit of the opportunity not just to learn, but also to teach others. Um, you don't have to be an expert to gain the experience and join in with us. And that's what we are, a learning team. So we hope you do contact us. My email is there and a phone number. And it's just not the particular week to host a tour. I think you understand it's just a bit damp, and we'd rather do it when we've got a nice breeze. And in the coming weeks, there'll be opportunities, and happy to set it up, especially for you or your own personal group. So with that, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Lillian. We did have a question in the chat already, and I'd like to anybody else that has any questions to feel free to unmute or use a chat. But Mary Stella asked, if you're not using homegrown compost, what should you look for when getting commercial products?
Oh, excellent question. I think I'll add that into my slideshow. You're faced with the problem that not all compost is created equal. So all you can do is ask the landscape supply company where their compost is from. I have found compost in bags to be just not helpful. because it's not really regulated. So what you want, what you don't, well, what I really should say is be careful of topsoil. There's a lot of bags of things that are called soil or topsoil. If it says compost, I'd look at it and see what it is. I mean, it might be composted manure, which is fine. You know, you can't do, if it's real compost, if it's some material that was once living and has now decomposed and is put in a bag, um, it's going to be beneficial, but you're going to be paying for it, obviously. Um, so I don't have much of an answer there. We're just so spoiled with the municipal compost, which I think is more um, has more life in it. We know it does. The organic matter percent is higher, and it's maybe there's sleeping bacteria in there, but man, they come alive like crazy. I always wonder about what's in a bag. I can't answer that. Sorry, because it's not a single product. It's all different. Good question though.
And then Sally was wondering too, is it all right if we share your presentation with our group, if we can
Oh,
get a copy of your...
oh, I'd be thrilled. I'd be honored. Absolutely. And really, when we put this program together, I think when I was first invited, my hope had been that this would be step one, and step two would be anyone who's seriously interested in the home composting story to just give me a call and we'll set up a special demonstration using a real bin with real materials, and my master composters join in, and we always learn. We always are learning and sharing. You know, for example, you get these questions. What about eggshells? Okay. What about lemon rinds? There's a lot of choices out there. There's somebody else there. No cat manure. There's a lot of no's. And you come to a workshop. I have a whole package of information, hopefully. So you leave with more confidence about doing things. I keep asking gardeners, are you composting at home? And a frequent answer is, oh, I've got a pile out back. And I don't know if those individuals understand really how to manage their pile so it's nuisance free and that they get really nice compost. I don't know what they're doing. What are we doing if we don't get the product out that is healthy for our gardens? Otherwise, it's just a waste pile. So we like to chip and shred and cut and mix. And it's pretty simple, pretty simple. You can't really make a mistake when you do that. Good. Are there other questions, perhaps?
Yeah, I had another question about somebody who has used the SOCWA compost. They said they were overwhelmed by weeds in the compost.
Okay. I've heard that before. I would ask the question, how do you know that the weed seeds were in the compost? So that's a little bit of a dialogue. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's highly unlikely. You know, compost is the most fertile soil in the world, and there's weed seeds blowing all around everywhere. So, you don't, and might be, I guess, but what seeds can survive the 160-degree compost temperature? I didn't go through it, but the SOCWA compost site is a highly managed, regulated process. We're the largest compost facility in the state of Michigan, and it is a regulated activity, and there's science behind making that compost, taking those bags of yard waste. We used to have biodegradable bags with grass clippings and all kinds of things. All kinds of things go in there. But with heat and the microbes and the checks that take place, it pretty much becomes compost. And you try to say, what is compost? Well, as I say, there might be a case, but it's very atypical. And most of us that use the SOCWA compost extensively don't have any difficulty really. But darn, yeah, the weeds are growing. Yeah, because they fly in or it gets mixed in by us. So other questions or thoughts? It's really a great product. It's just a great product. If you have any reservations, in fact, to have a 3 pails of compost. I mean, I'm going and picking it up. I'm straining my back, but man, I'm doing it in the spring. I'm putting it all around all of my beds. Absolutely. And then I do it again around shrubs in the fall, twice a year, whenever it's not too hot or whatever. I can never get enough, it seems. And then yes, even for perennials, they don't absolutely need the compost, but I'm using it to get all these other benefits, the nutrients and the disease prevention. When I say they don't need it, they don't need it for the nutrients. It's there, and plus, also the other tip is that compost, when it's put into the soil system, changes. So within 6 months, or not even that, 3 or 4 months, the 100% compost that you put on top of your soil has become less. It's become more stable, more humusy, less of the dynamic exchange through the soil food web and so forth. So you need to replenish it to give it more life. Also, I might have mentioned this, I should mention it. There is online the soil food web classes that Dr. Elaine Ingham has pioneered. They're wonderful. Some are short, little 5-minute videos, but she's got a whole set of classes. She's out at, I think it's the University of Washington in Seattle, and you can actually have a special compost analysis. Her market, so to speak, her teaching goes to farmers, small organic farmers. And my observation is she's transformed the world. I mean, she studied the soil food web, learned what was going on, and now she basically teaches small farmers how to use compost and natural mulches, materials that are around on their property anyway, and how to make that work for them. Sheet composting, we ought to be doing more of that. That's clipping all clips, just kind of piling them up. That's okay. Yeah. Just leave the leaves, leave the debris, and let nature take its course.
Lynn, did you have any times of the year or that you should or should not be putting compost on your garden, or is it pretty much?
Good question. Anytime. Anytime. Maybe not when the ground is frozen, but even then, I don't think it hurts. I think we edge toward the times that we normally would be thinking about fertilizing, and that's the fall. Fall is really, really good. And what we do at the SOCWA vegetable gardens, and as I say, it's not that I'm baffled, it's that I'm amazed and thrilled that we are not dealing with pests and diseases. But what we do is we clear out, we rake off, pull out any debris, then we put down compost, usually in the fall, and then top dress it in the spring when we plant. So that's a really clean planting approach. Side dressing, though, is also important. So if you're growing vegetables, for the nutrients, yeah, you're going to put compost down in the spring and in July. Side dress, because you're going to need more nutrients. I mean, if you're using compost as a nutrient source, as a fertilizer for tomatoes, you got to put a lot down, which means you want to kind of keep putting it down, just a shovelful, a little trowelful here and there. It doesn't have to be a big pailful. So no, there is no problem any time of the year, whenever you feel like it. I think it's more the sequence of planting, and then you're using your compost, then you're putting your mulch on top. And once you've got your mulch, maybe you've got a stable situation and you won't have to carry those pails and do that physical work, which is the time we're in right now, of kind of sitting back a little bit and enjoying our gardens, and maybe not quite so much weeding and hauling of material. Yeah, it's all good. And by the way, we are really open to your questions and also your experiences with either compost you make or SOCWA compost too, and natural mulches.
Did anybody else have any more questions? You feel free to chat, or just feel free to unmute yourself and chime in.
I wish I could see you. I'm trying. Maybe I need to unshare this. I don't know how to see.
Yeah, I think we all have our videos off just to minimize distraction.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But if anybody wants to turn their video back on, or like I said, unmute, and if you have any comments or if you had any questions, this is your opportunity.
This is Jane and Andy Berry. Can I ask a question?
Oh, hi, Jane.
Hi.
Andy. Oh my gosh, this is fantastic.
Yeah, I think, let me there with me right here. Come forward, sir. He's here. The top of his head. Important question. Our compost pile is a pit, literally. It's about 10 feet long, about 3 feet wide, and about 4 feet deep.
Good. Great.
Well, that's the first thing I'm glad to hear.
Sure.
And we do throw all organic stuff in there.
Yeah.
What Andy does, and he shouldn't be doing at 91, is he double digs their vegetable garden.
Oh.
So that's my question. He's been doing it for decades, and I said, I don't think that's the best thing to do anymore.
I'm amazed at so much work. I believe that Jana Makanovich and most other professional garden educators have put double digging into the back. You know, it's a practice that was recommended 20 years ago. I don't know why you need to do it, Andy. You know, if you've got vegetables, if you've got good soil with compost, you just dig and plant. So maybe it's a matter of getting your soil to a point where it's you know, fertile and rich and easy to work with. No, I do not think you need to double dig. Too much work, friends. Be better to be able to sit back and enjoy it. Boy, I've got to visit your garden. But you know, the note on burying compostable materials, that's always a great idea. In fact, one might argue that it's more productive or quicker than using an above ground bin. In fact, you can cut up fruits, especially fruits and vegetable peelings, where you might have some nuisance issues, but you want to bury it deep. And then I'm assuming you don't dig out the resulting material, and it may not really compost all that well that quickly. It won't, in fact, it doesn't, right? Deep in the ground, 3 feet, 2 feet under, it'll be a slower decomposition, most likely, but it's fine. Yeah, absolutely. Put it back in. I don't know though. I like the nutrients in the compost, and I also like to see what is happening. I like that feeling of recycling, of sort of working on your sustainable landscape practices in your own home. I mean, it's especially for children and kids. It's really great, and for us too. Gee, Andy, good for you though. I mean, whatever, does no harm.
It's one way of getting rid of leaves.
Well, you mean to put them in the pit?
Yeah.
Well, with leaves, we feel shredded leaves are the most valuable above ground mulch that we could possibly have. And we like to keep our leaves, and that doesn't mean that they're blowing around all over the sidewalk and street morning, noon, and night, but we're using them as a mulch. They do so much good for the insect life that's going on, and for building the soil health and the decomposers. I mean, it's just part of the natural cycle as it happens in the forest. Yeah, we're collecting shredded leaves in bags from the curbside all the time. We never have enough leaves. If any of you have shredded leaves extra, even like right now, we could use them like crazy. You know, rather than buying mulch, which we do. We buy mulch for our native garden when we have to. Be it pine needles. We love pine needles. We have bought pine needles, right? $12 a bale from English Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
We'd rather not. And shredded leaves are perfect.
How do you shred leaves?
You mow them.
Well, if you don't have a mower, I mean, I'm in a condo and I don't.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Good question. Good
out
point.
there. I like to collect them, but how am I going to shred them?
Well, there are leaf, what are they called? Leaf mulchers. But I think what I would do is simply, for a home compost pile, you can just tear up the leaves, just tear them up by hand, or let them sit for a while and crumble them up a little bit. You know, the more you can mix them up. Now, those really big maple leaves, you know, what to do with them? Well, maybe you can put them under bushes a little bit and let them decompose. If you have a small space, you do just need to have them go to the compost site, and then they'll come back for you. Yeah, mowing leaves is the easy way, and mostly people are doing that. See, that's the thing. You can get your supply of wonderful shredded leaves in the fall, and then store a bag if you wish. Or look for honeysuckle leaves are small, or willow oak leaves. They're fine, you know, no problem. The more the merrier. By the way, tar spot on maple is not a big concern in the compost, but you don't want black walnut. Keep black walnut and the jugalone and the black walnut. It doesn't help. There's some plants that can't grow in that environment. Not a lot, but there are a few. So those go to the curb for yard waste collection. But yeah, good nutrients in the leaves. I guess you could have your grandchildren, if any of you have grandchildren, cut them up, make a project. I'm curious about that, right? You pay the kids to pull the weeds or dig the dandelions. It's just a sort of an extension. Yeah, leaves are very, very valuable.
And then I have somebody asking if it's okay to leave the clippings on the lawn.
Oh, really? Oh my. The answer is please, yes, do. It is one of the most beneficial practices for your lawn, and you can reduce lawn fertilizer by 1/3 easily. That's MSU research. That's Dr. Kevin Frank. We've had at SOCWA, we've had a complete healthy lawn care program. You can find some of the materials online. When I retired from paid work, I decided I was not going to do lawn seminars anymore. With 100 people, they're just so anxious for the information. Absolutely, please cut it high, let it lie. 1/3, you set the blade high, and the private landscapers are pretty much doing this automatically, I think. If not, please talk to them, because anyway, you want the water, you want the organic matter back in your soil system, and its nutrients as well. So yeah, good stuff, those clippings. By the way, you do not need grass clippings to make compost. We often think you do, that's the easy green material. No, you just leave them on your lawn and then use you can use fruit and vegetable peelings or other green materials that you just cut up with a clippers and just mix it in, or nothing. As I said, shredded leaves, soil, water, air, you've got your compost mix right there. It works great. So yeah, please do. Leave the leaves, leave the clippings.
Mm-hmm. And then did anybody else have any more questions for Lillian before we end the night? It's your opportunity.
Lillian, this is Sally. Why don't you email me your PowerPoint presentation and we'll put it on our website if that's okay with you.
Oh, Sally, it may not email very easily. My photos are not compressed. I have 90 photos. We went through 90 slides.
Can you downsize it in Acrobat? Do you have professional Acrobat?
Oh no, I don't know.
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Okay. That's a nice challenge. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. It was fabulous.
Okay. Thank you all. See you in the gardens. Looking forward to hearing from you.
So much for your time, Lillian. We really appreciate it a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. See you. Happy gardening.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Andy and Jane will call you, Lillian, to come to our house.
Oh, I'd love that. Oh, dear, I see all the friends now. Carolyn McQuiggan, hi. Oh, this is wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Yes, please contact me. Call or email is the best. Anytime.